Hey guys, it's Ellie. Welcome back to Bite-Sized Book of Mormon. I'm glad to have you with me. So if you've never been here before, this is just a podcast where I read through one chapter of the Book of Mormon each episode, and I give a little bit of context, a little bit of insight, a little bit of good times, so stick around. So if you remember last episode, we read Alma chapter 17, in which the saga of Ammon begins. So we transition from Alma and Amulek's ministry in the last few chapters. Now we are reading the sons of Mosiah and their ministry, and we start off with Ammon, and it starts pretty violently. It starts with some chopping off of arms, so it's a completely iconic chapter. Go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But yeah, for now, let's start reading Alma chapter 18. And it came to pass that King Lamoni caused that his servants should stand forth and testify to all the things which they had seen concerning the matter. And when they had all testified to the things which they had seen, and he had learned of the faithfulness of Ammon in preserving his flocks, and also of his great power in contending against those who sought to slay him, he was astonished exceedingly, and said, Surely this is more than a man. Behold, is not this the great Spirit who doth send such great punishments upon this people because of their murders? And they answered the king and said, Whether he be the great Spirit or a man, we know not. But this much we do know, that he cannot be slain by the enemies of the king. Neither can they scatter the king's flocks when he is with us, because of his expertness and great strength. Therefore we know that he is a friend to the king. And now, O king, we do not believe that a man has such great power, for we know he cannot be slain. And now, when the king heard these words, he said unto them, Now I know that it is the great Spirit, and he has come down at this time to preserve your lives, that I might not slay you as I did your brethren. Now this is the great Spirit of whom our fathers have spoken. So if you were to trust only the Nephite side of things, you would believe that the Lamanites were godless, horrible, vicious, violent people. But, in fact, there does seem to be some sort of framework of religion in this Nephite culture, which is really interesting. Because, as I'm sure you noticed, the Lamanite king thinks that Ammon is the Great Spirit, which I assume comes kind of from the echoes of the gospel that they hear from the Nephites. Because, the Great Spirit could very easily be kind of a misunderstanding of the Nephite belief in God. They definitely could have, picked up that vague belief from the Nephites a long time ago and just kind of, had that perpetuated in their culture, kind of separate from the Nephites. So it developed as the Great Spirit instead of developing as an understanding of God that the Nephites have. So I think it's kind of interesting to see, they are not a godless people. They do believe in some form of higher power, or at least they have been told about a higher power that exists, whether or not they believe in it. And I think it's kind of ironic, where he's like, oh no, this is the Great Spirit that's punishing us for doing our murders. Is this the Great Spirit that's trying to stop me from killing you for failing at your job? Oh man. So it's kind of funny because he's both acknowledging that there is a Great Spirit that punishes people for doing bad things, but he also acknowledges that he does bad things by killing his servants that fail him. So if I were King Lamoni, I would be concerned, because he seems to acknowledge that what he's doing, how he's treating his servants, is wrong. And he also believes in this kind of Great Spirit idea where, there's this higher power that's sending them punishments for murdering people. So clearly he doesn't believe in the Great Spirit that much, because he's not allowing it to change his actions, which is kind of the whole point of religion, to change your actions. But clearly he has some idea, some vague notion of a higher power that has moral judgment. And so now, if I were King Lamoni, I would be freaking out. I would be like, oh no, they were right when they were talking about the Great Spirit. I am screwed. This guy is dangerous and powerful and cannot be killed. I'm in danger. He's gonna mete out justice on my head. I am screwed. He knows that I've been killing my servants that fail me. This is bad. So, yeah, I would be terrified if I were King Lamoni. So it's both interesting to see King Lamoni's belief, or at least idea of a Great Spirit, and also his relationship to that belief. Because clearly, he doesn't let it hold very much sway in his life, but he does have that idea in the back of his head. So, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. Now this was the tradition of Lamoni, which he had received from his father, that there was a Great Spirit. Notwithstanding they believed in a Great Spirit, they supposed that whatever they did was right. Nevertheless, Lamoni began to fear exceedingly, with fear lest he had done wrong in slaying his servants. For he had slain many of them, because their brethren had scattered their flocks at the place of water, and thus, because they had had their flocks scattered, they were slain. Now it was the practice of these Lamanites to stand by the waters of Sebis to scatter the flocks of the people, that thereby they might drive away many that were scattered unto their own land, it being a practice of plunder among them. And it came to pass that King Lamoni inquired of his servants, saying, Where is this man that has such great power? And they said unto him, Behold, he is feeding thy horses. Now the king had commanded his servants previous to the time of the watering of their flocks, that they should prepare his horses and chariots, and conduct him forth to the land of Nephi, for there had been a great feast appointed at the land of Nephi by the father of Lamoni, who was king over all the land. Now when King Lamoni heard that Ammon was preparing his horses and his chariots, he was more astonished, because of the faithfulness of Ammon, saying, Surely there has not been any servant among all my servants that has been so faithful as this man, for even he doth remember all my commandments to execute them. So not only is Ammon a servant, not only is Ammon extremely powerful, but he's also a good servant. He is more obedient than apparently King Lamoni is used to, and so it's interesting that not only is he marveling at the fact that apparently Ammon cannot be killed, but he's also marveling at the fact that he just listened to what the king told him and did it. Like, this seems to be novel for King Lamoni, which is kind of hilarious. So yeah, King Lamoni is in a state. So he has this, like, ticking time bomb, it seems, in his group of servants. So he's like, this guy is extremely powerful, and clearly he has some divine charter to be here, but he's also subservient and obedient to me? And he's like really, really good at being obedient to me? This is so strange to have someone so powerful under his command. That's gotta be a weird situation to be in. Also, it's kind of funny how in verse 5, it says that, the Lamanites believe in a great spirit, but they think that what they did was right, and so they aren't worried about the moral judgments of this great spirit. But at the end it says, Lamoni began to fear, because he was afraid that he had done wrong in slaying his servants. So he was like, oh no, what if killing my servants was, like, bad or something? Oh no. Like, seemingly he hadn't considered the idea that murdering his servants for failing at a job that they're being attacked for doing is bad. Like, yeah, Lamoni, it's not a good thing to do that. Maybe don't. Now I surely know that this is the Great Spirit, and I would desire him that he come in unto me, but I durst not. And it came to pass that when Ammon had made ready the horses and the chariots for the king and his servants, he went in unto the king, and he saw that the countenance of the king was changed. Therefore he was about to return out of his presence. And one of the king's servants said unto him, Rabbana, which is, being interpreted, powerful or great king, considering their kings to be powerful, and thus he said unto him, Rabbana, the king desireth thee to stay. Therefore Ammon turned himself unto the king, and said unto him, What wilt thou that I should do for thee, O king? And the king answered him not for the space of an hour, according to their time, for he knew not what he should say unto him. And it came to pass that Ammon said unto him again, What desirest thou of me? But the king answered him not. And it came to pass that Ammon, being filled with the Spirit of God, therefore he perceived the thoughts of the king. And he said unto him, Is it because thou hast heard that I defended thy servants and thy flocks, and slew 7 of their brethren with a sling, and with a sword, and smote off the arms of others in order to defend thy flocks and thy servants? Behold, is it this that causeth thy marvellings? I say unto you, what is it that thy marvellings are so great? Behold, I am a man, and am thy servant. Therefore, whatsoever thou desirest which is right, that will I do. Now when the king had heard these words, he marveled again, for he beheld that Ammon could discern his thoughts. But notwithstanding this, King Lamoni did open his mouth, and said unto him, Who art thou? Art thou that great spirit who knows all things? Ammon answered and said unto him, I am not. And the king said, How knowest thou the thoughts of my heart? Thou mayest speak boldly, and tell me concerning these things, and also tell me by what power ye slew and smote off the arms of thy brethren that scattered my flocks. And now, if thou wilt tell me concerning these things, whatsoever thou desirest, I will give unto thee. And if it were needed, I would guard thee with my armies. But I know that thou art more powerful than all they. Nevertheless, whatsoever thou desirest of me, I will grant it unto thee. So this is a really interesting, interaction. And I'm sure that in King Lamoni's experience as a king, it is likely unique. I think this is likely the first time that this king has been faced with someone who he knows is more powerful than him. And I think he's just kind of figuring out how to get around that, how to navigate the situation. So he doesn't even ask Ammon to come. He's too afraid. He says in verse 11 that he durst not ask Ammon to come. But then once Ammon finishes up all of his tasks, he comes to the king anyways, and he stands there for a bit, and he's like, well, I guess if you have nothing for me to do, I'll leave. And then the servant's like, no, stay. Which, the servant refers to him as a king, which is, really significant on its own. And then the king sits there in silence for an hour. Which, I'm not sure if that's translated to, what we would call an hour today. But still, there was some length of time. And I think it being translated to the term hour means that it was kind of a significant amount of time. Whether or not that was actually a full hour, who knows. But the king sat there for an hour silently. He didn't know what to say. And I think that makes a lot of sense for someone who's never truly believed in a god. He's never truly acknowledged the existence of someone who has more power than him, other than his father, which that makes sense. But now he has to navigate this entirely new understanding of his place in the world, because he's like, oh my gosh, there's this being who is way more powerful than me, and I don't know where he gets his power from, but I'm afraid that he's going to use it to judge me. And so he sits there completely silent. And Ammon is like, oh, are you weirded out because I did this thing? And he's like, how did you know my thoughts? Are you the Great Spirit? And Ammon's like, no, I'm not the Great Spirit. I'm normal. I'm in fact your servant. You can tell me what to do. As long as it's good, I will do it. It's fine. And the king is like, I feel like that mystified the king even more, because he's like, how do you have this much power and you're just a guy? How is this possible? How did you do this? My gosh, the king must just be so confused right now. That's what I'm getting from this. Not necessarily that he's in awe. I think he is in awe, but I think more than that, he's just confused. He's, mystified. He's like, where did you come from? Who are you, if not the Great Spirit? And then he's like, if you tell me, I will give you anything you ask for. So clearly, he, really wants to know. He really wants to hear Ammon's story. I think that's a testimony to how effective Ammon's strategy was that he used in last chapter, where instead of leading with the gospel, he led with his willingness to serve the king and be a servant. And then, through his actions of being an exceptionally good servant, now the king wants to hear what he has to say. Now he really wants to know, instead of just being told it by someone whom he's never met before. Now the king is dying of curiosity. He's like, please tell me, I will do anything. Now Ammon, being wise yet harmless, he said unto Lamoni, wilt thou hearken unto my words if I tell thee by what power I do these things? And this is the thing that I desire of thee. And the king answered him and said, yea, I will believe all thy words. And thus he was caught with guile. And Ammon began to speak unto him with boldness, and said unto him, believest thou that there is a God? And he answered and said unto him, I do not know what that meaneth. And then Ammon said, believest thou that there is a great spirit? And he said, yea. And Ammon said, this is God. And Ammon said unto him again, believest thou that this great spirit, who is God, created all things which are in heaven and in the earth? And he said, yea, I believe that he created all things which are on the earth, but I do not know the heavens. And Ammon said unto him, the heavens is a place where God dwells with all his holy angels. And King Lamoni said, is it above the earth? And Ammon said, yea, and he looketh down upon all the children of men, and he knows all the thoughts and intents of the heart, for by his hand were they all created from the beginning. And King Lamoni said, I believe all these things which thou hast spoken. Art thou sent from God? And Ammon said unto him, I am a man, and man in the beginning was created after the image of God, and I am called by his Holy Spirit to teach these things unto this people, that they may be brought to a knowledge of that which is just and true. And a portion of that Spirit dwelleth in me, which giveth me knowledge, and also power according to my faith and desires which are in God. Now when Ammon had said these words, he began at the creation of the world, and also the creation of Adam, and told him all the things concerning the fall of man, and rehearsed and laid before him the records and the holy scriptures of the people, which had been spoken by the prophets, even down to the time that their father Lehi left Jerusalem. So I think partially because of the curiosity that was created by Ammon's mystifying acts with the sheep last chapter, that created enough curiosity for Lamoni to be not only interested and willing to listen to what Ammon has to say, but also believing in what he has to say. And what I really, really love is in that back and forth where Ammon is asking King Lamoni what he believes, and he's explaining a few things. He says, do you believe in God? And King Lamoni is really honest. He's like, I don't know what you mean by that. I don't understand the question. He doesn't even have a concept of God, which for us is such a common word to use. Not even in the context of the God that we have in Christianity, but just it's used as a word for a divine figure. But that wasn't even a concept that they had seemingly in Lamanite culture. And so he was like, I don't even know what you mean by that. And then he's like, well, do you believe in a great spirit? And he's like, yeah, okay, I do believe in a great spirit. And then later on, he's like, I don't know what you mean by heaven. What do you mean by heaven? And again, that for us is such a common, such an easy phrase to understand. All Christian belief shares the idea of an afterlife, and usually it's called heaven. And even in our modern English today, we use heaven as an adjective or a noun to just describe some place that's really awesome and cool. And so, again, it's really just a common word for us. And so it's so strange that someone wouldn't understand that. he doesn't even have a concept of what heaven is. So it's really interesting to see, like, the king isn't necessarily consciously sinning or consciously being wicked. He literally just does not understand. He has no concept of some of the foundational aspects of Christianity. He has no clue. So it's really interesting to see where Ammon starts. He starts off with, do you believe there is a God? Do you believe that he created the earth? Do you believe that man was created in the image of God? Like, he starts with such foundational things. And then in verse 36, it says that Ammon started speaking to him starting from the creation. So he's like going chronological. He's like, so this is how everything started, and we'll go from there. And so Lamoni's like sat down for like a long, proper sermon at this point. Which, if you had asked the king to sit down for a long sermon from a Christian missionary from a Nephite, he would have kicked you out of his court for being crazy. But now, 3 days later, he is now listening with presumably rapt attention to this guy. So it's such an interesting, like, effect that Ammon's actions with the sheep had on the king. Like, it completely blew his mind. And it's so fascinating to kind of see that effect and how it's just helping him listen and believe to Ammon. And he also rehearsed unto them, for it was unto the king and to his servants, all the journeyings of their fathers in the wilderness, and all their sufferings with hunger and thirst, and their travail, and so forth. And he also rehearsed unto them concerning the rebellions of Laman and Lemuel, and the sons of Ishmael, yea, all their rebellions did he relate unto them, and he expounded unto them all the records and scriptures from the time that Lehi left Jerusalem down to the present time. But this is not all, for he expounded unto them the plan of redemption, which was prepared from the foundation of the world, and he also made known unto them concerning the coming of Christ, and all the works of the Lord did he make known unto them. And it came to pass that after he had said all these things, and expounded them to the king, that the king believed all his words. And he began to cry unto the Lord, saying, O Lord, have mercy, according to thy abundant mercy which thou hast had upon the people of Nephi, have upon me and my people. And now when he had said this, he fell unto the earth as if he were dead. And it came to pass that his servants took him, and carried him in unto his wife, and laid him upon a bed, and he lay as if he were dead for the space of 2 days and 2 nights. And his wife, and his sons, and his daughters mourned over him, after the manner of the Lamanites, greatly lamenting his loss. So this is the first of many instances of someone passing out in this story, which is partially why little Ellie loved it so much, because the image of, like, everyone in a room being passed out is just absurd. It's so funny. But anyways, it's so fascinating how, like, receptive King Lamoni is to everything. Again, 3 days before this, you could not have asked him to even listen to the words out of a Nephite's mouth. And now, he is, like, fully believing in everything that Ammon's telling him. Ammon's going through the creation. He's going through, like, Laman and Lemuel, which is, like, a foundational thing that the Lamanites and Nephites share. And he's talking about Jesus. He's talking about those scriptures since Lehi left Jerusalem. He's going through all these things. He's talking about, you know, their experiences in the wilderness, right, when they left Jerusalem. Like, he's talking about everything. And King Lamoni is just eating it up. And what does he do right after he, like, has listened to everything that Ammon has to say? He prays and asks for mercy. Because now he understands what he has been doing wrong. Now he has more of a consciousness and understanding of his guilt. So now, I believe he can truly sin. Because now he knows what sinning looks like. Now he knows what he's rebelling against when he sins. It's so interesting to see a complete 180 from this king. It's awesome. And especially the fact that he just immediately falls down on his knees and prays for mercy. He's like, please give me and my people mercy, just like you've given mercy to the people of the Nephites. And then he passes out. And it's even for 2 days and 2 nights, which I'm pretty sure is exactly as long as Alma the Younger was passed out after he had his spiritual experience. So this is like the second time this is happening for Ammon. He like totally understands what's happening at this point. And while his entire family is like mourning King Lamoni, I'm sure Ammon is just like standing around like, no, he's actually fine. He's gonna wake up in a little bit and he'll be like a changed man. It'll be great. Anyways, oh my goodness, what a fascinating chapter. It is a really quick 180, and so it may seem that Ammon didn't really have to work for it. He just came to the king, and the king was like, please, tell me everything. But I think that it, again, really speaks to the effectiveness of his initial strategy that he came up with. Instead of starting with a sermon, he kind of built a relationship. He built a reputation among his servants as a good and powerful servant. You know, then he made King Lamoni care about his words. He made King Lamoni curious, which is so interesting, and it's awesome how well it worked. King Lamoni is like all of the way into it now. So the standout verse for this chapter is something that I've already kind of talked a little bit about, but it's going to be verse 29, which says, "And he said, Yea, I believe that he created all things which are on the earth, but I do not know the heavens." So the very admission of ignorance on King Lamoni's part is what speaks to me as true curiosity. If I were a proud king and I wasn't willing to change, I would just be like, I don't care about what you're saying. I don't care to ask clarifying questions. I'm just going to kick you out. And even if I was pretending to listen to this, like, preacher in my court as a king, I would just pretend to know what he's talking about and not really listen. But it really shows me how engaged King Lamoni is for the fact that he's asking clarifying questions. He's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Please explain. And that, like, bright-eyed curiosity is so cool to me. When he has a question, he asks a prophet of God. He asks an authority. When he finds a hole in his knowledge, instead of leaning towards, oh man, this doesn't make total sense, I'm just gonna not care about this, he leans towards, oh, this doesn't make sense, let's learn what it means. Let's find out more about what he's talking about. Let's ask a missionary from God to clarify it for us. And so I think it's really fun that he just has that sort of humility, that he's admitting that he doesn't know something, he, has a hole in his knowledge, and he's asking for clarification. I'm not sure how proud he is as a king usually, but right now he's being really humble, and it's so cool. And it's reading to me as just like sheer and utter curiosity. He's just so fascinated, and he's just does not want to miss a single beat. And actually what this reminds me of is a verse in 1 Nephi chapter 11. This is verse 17. Nephi says, "And I said unto him, I know that he loveth his children. Nevertheless, I do not know the meaning of all things." So that's a young Nephi admitting to an angel in a vision that he doesn't know everything, that he only can be sure that God loves him, but he doesn't know everything. So even Nephi, early in his life, this is, in the very beginning of his groundbreaking vision, he admitted that he had holes in his knowledge, and he was face to face with an angel. He wasn't about to lie to protect his ego and be like, yeah, an angel, I get everything, I'm totally on the ball, I totally understand. No, he's like, well, I know God loves us, but I don't know very much else. I don't know the meaning of all things. I don't know. And King Lamoni's doing that, kind of in embryo. He's admitting to Ammon in front of him, I don't know what you mean. Please explain this to me. Like, I have a hole in my knowledge. I believe you, but I have this hole in my knowledge. But this hole in my knowledge does not break my belief in your words. That is faith. And King Lamoni's already, so early on, showing faith and trust in the words that Ammon is saying. That's cool. So yeah, that is the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed. This is a really, really cool chapter because we can kind of break down exactly why Ammon's strategy worked and exactly what traits of faith King Lamoni is already showing. So yeah, pretty neat. But yeah, there's just a few links down in the show notes. So first, if you want to message me, you can click the Let Me Know You Learned link just to shoot me a message and nerd out about something with me. There's also a few links to access a digital version of the Book of Mormon, so if you want to read along or just find a chapter you like, you can go ahead and do that. Thirdly, there's a quick support the show link, so if you want to shoot me a few dollars and support what I do as a podcaster, that'd be greatly appreciated. We're also on YouTube, so if you want to go subscribe to the YouTube channel below to find daily Book of Mormon trivia polls and also the podcast posted on there, you can go ahead and do that. And finally, we are on Instagram, so if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can go ahead. You will find episode announcements and standout verses, etc., etc. It's a good time, so yeah, go and follow me there. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I'll talk to you later. Bye.